In this video, we are going to learn how to set up an environment project within Maya. The first thing that you need to do is make sure that you have set up a project. And that project is what you will always transfer when you're transferring data. It should have your source images, which contains your textures. It should have your scenes, which contains your Maya files, and it should have your images folder, which will contain renders when you create them. And the project also always has a workspace that is created by default. The first thing you need to do is open a blank Maya file. So just search for Maya, open it up, and then go to File and Set Project to set your project. I'm going to set it to this one and click on Set. Whenever you're setting a project, click on the main folder, the outside folder, and click on Set. If you double click, it'll just go inside the project folder, which you don't want. You want to make sure you're selecting this outside folder and click on Set. And you won't visually see anything happen, but if you go to File and Open Scene, you will now be inside that project and be able to open the files within that. If you haven't created any props yet, your project will be empty. But let's take a look at the props that I have. So my environment, I have a final environment scene, and I have my individual props. Let's go to one of these props and see what I have. So I'm going to click on open and not save this untitled file. So this is my table, and I have textures on this as well. If I go through my material, I have all my textures assigned. I have my table, that is the only thing in the outliner. I don't have any cameras and I don't have any lights. And my table is right at the center of the Maya window, and it is at the correct scale. So this is at real life scale, the scale that it's going to be in the final environment. And this is how all my props are set up. So I have my, let's go to this chair. So I'm not going to save this. And if I go to the chair, I have my chair and I have the material set up. And I have my chair within a group. So if you have multiple parts in a certain prop, it is good to put all of them in a group and have it at the real world scale. So these are all my individual props, and they have all the textures assigned. Now let's go to my final environment. So my final environment, I'm not going to save this, but my final environment has my scene set up. So it has my camera. So this is my rendering camera. Let's go to my rendering camera. So perspective 1 is my rendering camera. You can have more than one camera set up if you want to. I have my lights in here. So here I just have a sky dome, but you can have more lights. And I have all my props set up. If you look at the props, you will notice that they have a little diamond next to them. And we'll talk about why this is in a second. But apart from these props, I also have my blockout, which is hidden usually, and I just leave it here as a reference to see where I originally intended to place my objects. And I've deleted history and grouped this blockout, so it's easy to just select this group and hide and unhide that group when I need to. So let's look at these references. So these references are essentially our original files. So we saw this file and we saw this file. So these are our original files. But instead of importing them into this, we are referencing them in. And we can do this by going to File and Create Reference. And let's bring in our Gothic coffee table and reference that in. You will notice that it brings in that file right at the center of the Maya window where it was originally modeled. And it brings it in with, so we already had two versions of that Gothic coffee table in here. We had this one and we had one, and now it's brought in two. So this is how you would bring a reference in, and this is how you should bring in all your files into this environment. And The advantage of having your file be a reference is that now we have this Gothic coffee table in here, and they're all of these references are all originating from that same Maya file. So the advantage of doing this is that if I go back to my original Gothic coffee table file, let's open that up, and let's edit something here. So let's move this top of the table, move that aside, and go back to object mode and save this. So Control S to save, and let's open my final environment file. So all the references that I have of that coffee table 5 have all updated in this file. This is useful if you have, say, many chairs, many tables, something that you have multiple versions of that you want to bring into the file, and it's very easy to edit these all at once using that original scene file. And you can also have multiple versions of this object. So if you want one object to be posed a certain way or want it to be textured a certain way, you would have one version of that. And then you'd have another file where it's textured or posed in a different way. So you can reference many different files for the same object. But here are some rules to keep in mind for references. The first one is that whenever you bring this reference into your file, you want to make sure that you do not edit this in component mode in any way. So you do not want to go to vertex, edge, or face mode. You want to stay in object mode and only use this to move your file around. So when you bring it into your final environment, all you're going to do is you're going to scale, move, and rotate it in object mode. You are not going to touch the textures. You're not going to touch vertices, faces, or edges. You also want to make sure that you're referencing a Maya file. You cannot reference FBX files or OBJ files. Your reference has to be a Maya file. And when you're copying this, for example, we have these two coffee tables here. Maybe we want another one. You are never going to hit duplicate. So you're never going to select this and hit Control D for duplicate, because you'll notice that when I duplicate this, that file that I just created, it does not have the diamond next to it, which means that it is not a reference anymore, and it's just been sort of imported into this file. And if we go back and edit this Gothic coffee table in my original file, it is not going to edit this version. That's why whenever we want to bring in a copy, we go back to File and Create Reference and bring in that file again. And that's going to create a new reference, and they keep adding numbers. So here I have table 1 and then I have table 2, which is this brand new table. So whenever you want to bring in a copy of that exact same file, just go back up to File and Create Reference. And you might have many references. It's a good idea to have the default position of these references be at 0, 0, 0 and 1, 1, 1. So for this file, it is not the correct one. So this file is scaled up to 100. So if I set this back to 1, it becomes really small. But it's always good practice to have your group be set up and have all of these references be at 0, 0, 0 and 1, 1, 1 for the scale. And this file is obviously not being set up that way, but it's a good idea to always do that. And once you have the references, they will always be connected to your original file. So whenever you're setting up your final environment, you need to have your original Maya files within that project. It is very important when referencing to have your projects set up correctly. And if you have that, you can just reference our files and use this environment project for final setup, adding your lights, adding your cameras, and everything else. When I make a project with so many props, I also always make sure that my source images folder is well organized. So Let's go to source images. You'll notice that each of my props is in a different folder, and each folder has all the maps. So it has my base color, metalness, roughness, and all those things. And putting them in different folders prevents confusion so that you can easily assign the textures without wondering what is what. Name your files correctly, it's really important, and make sure that you put everything within a folder. If for any case you want to remove your reference and you don't, you want to reload it or add a different reference, you need to right click and reference, and you need to remove. So if you hit remove, it will ask you if you want to actually remove it, and you say remove. Whenever a file is referenced in, you have to make sure that the file is named the exact same thing. The name of the file, if that changes, the reference is going to break. So it's important to make sure files are named correctly, that they're in the correct project location, and that you're not editing the file, you're not editing vertex, edge, or face in any way within this reference, within this final project of your environment.